Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate Investor Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
So in today's episode, ladies, you are in for a real treat. We have Suzy Sevier. She is from the UK, and she just got started investing over a year ago and just closed on her first deal, which is an 88-unit apartment complex, not in her local town, but overseas, right? Lives in UK and made it happen in the United States. So I think we covered a lot of great insight and tips and strategies on how to not only get involved in investing, but get involved in investing in a very, very hot market, quite honestly. So we go through that very specifically, what she did literally A to Z on how she made that happen in a year's time frame.
Exactly. And besides this specific steps that she took, this is a mindset episode for you too, because we hear a lot that people need to start by wholesaling or single family. Suzy went through multifamily right away, and she's going to share with you the thought process behind it. She came across real estate in the midst of the pandemic. So she did not wait years and years to gain all the knowledge in order for her to start pulling the trigger. So this is a very great episode for you guys that are looking to get started in a multifamily and are procrastinating. She really shares this step by step, and her story is really special. Enjoy the episode.
Hey everyone, this is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
We are so excited to announce that our virtual summit is coming up on June 12th. Woo! This is our second. This is our second annual virtual summit, and it's more than a summit. This is going to be an absolute experience to be part of, because we are not just going to be, planning speakers, amazing speakers, by the way, but we're going to be doing so much more than that. I want to really highlight that we're focused on 3 pillars, giving you content and information around real estate investing, around business, and around mindset and self-care, our 3 pillars of what we do in the investor organization. Not only do we have an amazing kind of speaker lineup that's covering topics from lead generation, social media, raising money, creative financing, but we actually also have tons of bonus material of people talking, of amazing women talking about strategies around land flipping and Airbnb in a box and much, much more.
Exactly. And as Liz said, this is going to be an experience, and we're going to have a pre-event for you guys to enjoy each other, accountability groups, live mastermind, and networking. So we've thought about everything that you need, and we are putting everything in one day. So share with other women. Please share with other women that might benefit from being part of our community and part of this event. So all the information is going to be below. I will see you soon.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Investor Show. We are so excited to have Suzy Sevier on our show here today. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing your time with us and all the women that listen to our show. So thanks for being here, Suzy.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really, really excited to, chat with you two and bring more value to your listeners. So this is absolutely fabulous.
Wonderful. Well, that's what the theme is, right? As we bring on so many different women with different walks of life, it's all about what uniqueness we have to bring in our investing journey, or business journey, or even self-care journey, because those are the 3 key pillars that we'd like to serve women to, because it's not just investing, right? So it's not a hobby. We want you to run a business and run it like a business, even if it's micro or large, doesn't matter, and then also take care of yourself in the process so you can be your best self. So thanks for being here, Suzy. We always like to kick things off, right, Andressa, with something that's coming up for us, and we like to share that with the women listening, right?
Exactly. I guess today is your turn.
Yes, we take turns. We're very polite most of the time. So today's my turn. Today is a very special day because tonight kicks off our 2nd annual Investor Summit. And there's time to get your tickets. So go over to therealestateinvestor.com/level up. You do not want to miss this. But why I wanted also to share that was that I've been putting together our playlist And people might be like, that's an interesting thing for one of the co-founders to be doing, is putting together the playlist. Like, who really cares? I mean, I literally spent last weekend, and it must have been most of Saturday, handpicking
What the hell?
the songs. Not only what songs to play, but when to play them. Placement of the songs, upbeat, meaningful. And you might laugh. And the point of why I wanted to share this with all of you amazing women who listen is that it's really, I really enjoyed it, actually. It was very, very enjoyable for me to do because music is so important to me and how we feel and what we bring to the world. I like relaxing music in the morning. I like upbeat music when I run. I mean, I've been listening to our Investor Summit playlist, like every time I've been running, and I'm like, I love this playlist. Like, I'm just so excited by it. I'm like, it beats last year's playlist. But anyway, my point in sharing that is to know what brings you inspiration. And music for me brings me inspiration. Different mood I'm in. I put dinner music on like I literally have playlists for every moment of my day. And I just, music is important to me. It's much more important than like TV. Not like, my good Netflix show, of course, but I'm inspired by music, and I'm inspired by listening to like literally 25 women empowerment songs, right? You talk about, I'm like, I listen to it as I'm, sending people emails. I'm like, I can do anything. But anyway, my point in sharing is where you find inspiration. And if you don't know that, figure it out, because then you'll be able to feel more inspired and help more people in your world, tenants, whomever you're interacting with on your investing journey. So that's what I have for you today.
Yeah, I remember growing up, my dad, he usually, I don't know, remember those like black radio song, like cassettes?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So he usually brought that inside the bathroom. So we took showers listening to American songs, which I didn't know anything. Sometimes I hear an American song, an old one. I was like, oh, this is what it really means. Because at that time, I didn't know anything. But something with inside the bathroom and listening to music, that's where I get a lot of my ideas. You guys probably know when I get out of the shower, I just go and write.
I know, because you sent me a text.
My text list just took a shower, and she knows that, and not an idea is gonna come through. But the most important thing that I want you guys to get is that the summit is not going to be this boring thing that you're gonna sit down and pound it through because it's just so painful to get that. We want to make sure it's an experience. It's interactive. You're gonna be able to ask questions, getting in the mood. That's what the music is all about. So we kick things off at 7 p.m. tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Wendy Papasan. It's going to be an amazing, I can't wait. I am excited myself to attend it. I need to remind myself that I'll be hosting it. And then tomorrow, all day long with different speakers, we have masterminds. After the event, we have a 30-day investor challenge that we really prepare with all our heart, an accountability group. So you can't miss this event. It's our annual event. And I said this another day, and I'm going to say it again. There is a seat on the table that has your name on it. So claim it. It's yours. I don't care if you have no properties, one property, 100 doors. I don't care. It's yours. You are worth it. It's yours. I'll see you tonight.
Yes. Love it. And get ready for some great music too that I spent at least 6 hours putting together. But without further ado, Suzy, thank you so much for being here with us. And we always like to kick things off with the wonderful women that we get a chance to interview over the last 3 years. What propelled you to get involved in real estate investing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually what started my entire journey was COVID-19 and the lockdowns. And like just a little snippet for the listeners. So I actually live in Cambridge, England. So I'm all the way across the pond. And so our lockdown was a little bit different than what some other people experienced. And with our first one, we had no clue how long it was going to last. We were just told by the government, like, you will no longer, I guess, go to your place for work, and we'll update you every 3 weeks as necessary, and we were like, what are we going to do? Like that's the conversation my husband and I are having. We're like, I don't know what we're going to do. Right. Cause we don't have a TV just because we choose not to have one. And we could only go outside once a day to exercise and go to the grocery store. So we started a mini book club. And along the way, like the fourth book in, it was Multiple Streams of Income by Robert Allen. And like a couple chapters in, it starts talking about real estate investing. And like, we just looked at each other and said, like, this is something we have to do. And that's really how the whole entire journey started.
So walk us through from that point, what type of investments and how did you guys took the first step?
Yeah. So the first step was because like there's so much out there, right? You hear real estate investing, and for some people, you might just think, oh, like flipping, oh, one other version, but there's a whole entire world out there. And we had no idea what that was. So it was initially Googling like podcasts on real estate investing and like what books were out there. And the first place that we found was Bigger Pockets. So through that, we took in like a lot of podcast time. And like eventually what we did was then we searched on Facebook and found Facebook groups that had to do with real estate investing, right? Because that was we didn't know that even existed. And through one of those groups, because my husband is active duty Air Force. And so that's even what brings us over here. So like he was naturally drawn to, the military groups. He posted in one, and, even that in itself was kind of scary because it's like, okay, I'm asking a question. I don't know if anyone's going to answer. What if they don't? But through that, we actually got a lot of responses. And some people said like, oh, reach out to this person who's overseas, or, hey, there's a conference coming up in like 2 weeks. You should attend it. And actually, that conference that was referred to us was the first one we went to because we didn't even know conferences for real estate investing existed. And because everything was virtual, we knew that we had to absorb like what everyone was guiding us to, right? Because we had no idea how long it would last at that time. And through this conference, it was a veterans real estate investing conference. It talked about a huge variety, right? It talked about BRRRRs, fix and flips, house hacking, multifamily, short-term rentals, any kind of housing arbitrage, all of the above. And initially, the two that stuck out were BRRRRs and multifamily investing. But like not knowing a lot of what happened, we were like, okay, let's try the single family route first, because that's what it seems like everybody is doing, like that seems safe. Because at the time too, still with multifamily, it seems huge, like multi-million-dollar assets. Like, how do we take that down? We don't know what's going on. And so we had like set up a team and everything to do BRRRRs in the Midwest. And what I mean by that is because we're all the way over here, like we did a ton of interviews with property managers, a ton of interviews with contractors, realtors, because we knew that like deep down at the core, like the team had to be the strongest part of what we put together, or else it might not succeed, right? We didn't want to go through the headaches of having to, go through realtors, go through all of the above. And so really that's where we went, I guess, initially with BRRRRs.
How did you guys select the market? Because also like where you are, you decided not to invest there.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. Yeah. No, yeah.
Let me pick far the furthest way possible.
Yeah. So there were a couple of things that we were looking for, and this goes along with like the BRRRRs and the multifamily, but we wanted a city where like appreciation was not the main driver, just because for us, we wanted to make sure that we at least had cash flow coming in, which you can have everywhere. But like, we knew that eventually we wanted to get into multifamily. So like, there were a lot of pieces in that, but this market that we chose was Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I had actually lived there once upon a time. And so that's initially how we chose it. I mean, we had thought about Omaha, Nebraska. We had thought about like a place in Wisconsin, but I was like, like I can ask people for referrals here and know that the referrals are like legitimate, right? And so that was initially how we chose the market. But then we had 2 properties under contract and something happened that we just did not expect to happen. And an inland hurricane went through the city. And what that did was take out like 60% of the trees. People didn't have power for like 4, 5, 6 weeks. So from there, we had to take a step back and just say to ourselves, like, well, what do we do now? Right. Because I mean, even our property manager had said, I don't think that this city is going to be able to rebuild itself in the next year. And we're like, well, we can't wait for a year, right? Because you hear all the time, like, you need to get into real estate yesterday or now, it's never like, oh, it's okay to wait. And so initially our goals were to have 25 single family homes, but we just said, nope, we're just going to go straight into multifamily now. Like, we will figure it out. And we just pivoted like our education, right? So before, our podcasts and our books and our meetups were all guided towards, I guess, single family and what to do in that space. And then our meetups went straight to like multifamily and what people were doing there, and conferences that had to do with multifamily, and just different books that had to do with multifamily. And through one of those conferences, because I think this is a pretty big piece that we went to, which is something I never really thought about, and it was identity. And what it was you need to have that identity shift in order to have people know that you're in real estate investing, right? Because in multifamily, like, because our method was like syndications, was that you had to have a team, right? And we're like, okay, well, how do we build this team? What are we going to do, and through that, we started posting on social media, and we started saying, okay, we're now in multifamily space, right? Instead of like Michael being Air Force and Suzy being in business, like, we're getting into real estate, because like with building a team, you have to know, like, and trust the individuals, right? Because you're going to be with them for a very, very long time. And we just, that was just like something that you truly have to think about. And so through that, like, this is how we then picked the market for multifamily. Was one of Michael's old classmates from the Air Force Academy had said, hey, I'm already in real estate investing, but I want to be in multifamily. We should chat. And he initially was in Oklahoma City, and we knew that Tulsa was a great market. So we're like, hey, like, you're super close, so let's just start there. And then that's how we chose our initial market for multifamily investing.
That's a lot of pivoting you were doing at the beginning. But that's really helpful, right? Because so many people, are committed to a goal, and then they stick to the goal no matter what. And so what you did really well and really wonderfully is you listened and kind of said, okay, this may not be the right fit for us. Let's, and then you just didn't give up, and you pivoted. So you go to this conference, you have your husband's friend. So walk us through that. You're still new to the process, right? In multifamily, I've been involved in multifamily 15 years. And it's, it's a process, right? You're not going to know everything on day one. It's just impossible. So walk us through that. What did that look like? He was new to multifamily. So were you. What was your next step to kind of uncover deals, obviously acquire a team? Walk us through that kind of next step.
Yeah. And so once we knew our market, like when we were going into new spaces, whether that been like a new meetup or a new conference, it was like, hey, like, I'm Suzy, I'm an active syndicator all the way from Cambridge, England, and my market is Tulsa, right? And so through there, we actually had introductions, because it would be like, hey, I know somebody else who's investing in Tulsa. You should chat with them. Or, hey, I know somebody who's interested. Like, do you want that introduction? And then I was like, yeah, absolutely. This is amazing. And actually, we organically met our mentor that way. And so we brought him on the team because he had all the experience, right? Because I mean, even getting a bank loan, like, the bank wants to know that you can actually just go on and achieve your business plan that you had, right? They are not just going to like give millions of dollars away, not knowing if you can actually complete the business plan. And so that was the next huge big step for us, is just having that one introduction that changed everything. Because then he could look over the underwriting and he could say like, oh no, do not think about this area at all. And by that time, we had actually already interviewed probably like 5 different property management companies. And the vibe that we were getting was just not there, right? It felt very, very transactional. And like I said, at the beginning was like, the team has to be like very, very strong in order for us to be able to do this from, thousands of miles away. And what this mentor also provided, I guess, was a introduction to our property management company that we currently use, that we absolutely like love and adore, because it's been a conversation since day one. Like, yes, you can get these rents, but let's try it this way. And it's like, our big thing too is that we really focus on impact. And so I didn't want to have conversations like, oh, let's just renovate and push up rents. I wanted to talk about like, are you open to resident events? Are you open to working with residents who might need more handholding if it has to do with rent relief? Like, are you open to, just exploring ideas of actually having relationships again with residents and the families who live in these communities, instead of just acting like they are a check, because they're not, right? Like, the whole point is that we want to create a safe, like, housing for them, and we want to create a great community. And so those two next pieces, I guess, finding that mentor and then finding our property management company, who is, we truly believe, is part of our team, were like our next steps in the journey.
Got it. So break it down for me, your first multifamily deal, the structure of it and how you were able to find it and fund it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we made an entire cover letter, I guess, to send to brokers, because again, like, there's so many of us as in investors, but not a lot of brokers. And so what we did was wrote down like our team, like what their background was, but then we also added like the lenders that we had been talking to and our property management team to show that we were serious. And on those calls, it wasn't just, hey, I want deals. Like, do you have any deals? It was like, oh, I live in Cambridge. And then it would go to, oh my gosh, I love soccer. Like, who's your favorite team? And then turned into just having conversations and calling them just to ask about their day, instead of just calling them to be like, okay, do you have a deal yet? Do you have a deal yet? Right? Because again, like, your broker has to be a huge part of your team, because they advocate for you when it comes to the sale. And so we had been submitting LOIs. And so when it came to our particular property that we first closed on, it was with a broker that we had originally submitted an LOI with towards the beginning. And so he knew that we were serious. And he also knew that we were serious because when he sent us deals that we didn't like, I would email back and say, like, I'm sorry, this is not something we want at this time, right? The conversation wasn't just one way when it was something that I wanted. The conversation was very back and forth. And that was also very important. But so this first deal, it was on market. And initially when I got it, the financials were okay. And so we had went in toward the property. And when I say we, I mean the team that is over in the US, right? Because over here, we were still in a lockdown. And just our partner had said, this is something, this property is one of the better properties that I've looked at. And we're like, okay, cool. Like, we'll keep looking at it then. So we got it in August. Numbers were okay. Got it in September. You could see the numbers trending up, and it was like, okay, like, it's getting some momentum, but it's not there yet. And then in October, it was finally stabilized. And what I mean by that was that the occupancy was 90% and above. And from there, we were like, okay, it's trending up. Let's submit an LOI so that, like, by the time we closed, we have the opportunity to get Fannie or Freddie debt on it. And so that is what we did. So we ended up, like, after the LOI went through and going back and forth and the PSA like being signed, I guess it went from August all the way to February, 23rd. And that's when we finally closed. And it was a 88 unit in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And was that add value or?
Yeah, it was a value add. So we chose that because of what was happening in the economy, right? I mean, nobody knew what was going to happen. I mean, even right now, there's a lot of like doubt, but we didn't want something that was super distressed because we did not want to have to oversee a lot of construction. Again, like, we just wanted to try to create a risk profile that was not as intense from being all the way over here. So like, within our business plan, beyond the traditional like renovations, we decided to add washers and dryers because that is not very invasive, but it adds a lot of value to the residents, right? Because they can stay in their home. They can just worry about putting their like washing and drying their clothes and multitask instead of taking like the clothes and their family out to a laundromat and having to like, almost waste an entire day. And that was like the big thing for us. It was like, how can we impact the residents in a positive way by taking over this property? And washers and dryers just seemed like a no-brainer at that point.
Suzy, how many offers were made on the property? Who were you up against? How many people were you up against?
So I'm pretty sure there were like 11 other offers. So Tulsa is not like a super, super hot market. And that's something that we also like about it because it wasn't a ton of competition.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. 11 in this market is actually pretty low. We're selling a building. We have like 35 offers, right? That's psychotic. Okay. So you're new to multifamily. It's an 88 unit. It's technically your first project, right?
Yeah.
You and your husband. So that's a big deal. I mean, that's a really big deal, right? When I say big deal is that so many people, we put these limiting factors in like, well, we have to do this before we do this. Here, you're literally living in another country, overseas. You didn't even see the property physically, correct? Did you ever step foot there or did you?
No, we haven't yet.
No. So you're new to investing. Literally, you haven't been studying for years, or literally during COVID, you read the first book you read about investing was a year ago, just about, right? Mm-hmm. And then here you've pulled and orchestrated this team and mentor. How did you fund? How much money are we talking in terms of the project?
Yeah, so the total raise was $1.75 million, and then the asset itself was $4.35 million.
Okay, this is your first deal. Right. Yeah. Your first deal. So that's
so people that are listening going like, I'm going to start wholesaling and then I guess I'm going to buy a single family. So we're breaking the high ceiling here, right?
Suzy, clearly you have a wonderful way about you. You're clearly going to call any broker, and that's just the sense I get. You're probably somebody who has no problem picking up the phone and making calls. And you said, the words you used 5 minutes ago, you said, I'm an active syndicator. That's a very confident statement. And you are an active syndicator. I'm not saying you're not. You are an active syndicator. But you have confidence to say that and a confidence to share that with people. And I love that because, I think so many women undersell themselves and they build it up like I have to have all of this before I can have this conversation. And here you are again. I don't have to give the facts again. I love it. I just love it. And you had a recipe though, you did your homework, you built a team that you really, it sounds like you spent a lot of time building your team and you knew enough to build this team and vet them and then have a mentor, which is brilliant, quite honestly. And I think that's wonderful. And I think you are showing a recipe though for other people. If you can do it overseas on your first deal and orchestrate this team, anyone can. In my opinion, right? That's like you're showing this wonderful path. So I think it's just awesome.
Oh, yeah,
I really do.
Thank you. And I mean, I even want to add, right? It took a lot. It wasn't just like the confidence was there. Like every morning, like I was writing down affirmations saying, I am an active syndicator. I want my net worth to be this. I want to own this many units. And the more that I said it, the more that it just came true, right? Because even initially, like getting on the meetup calls in itself was very nerve-wracking, but it just came with practice that it all became easier. Like I wasn't just like, oh, I'm ready. I mean, there was a lot of just talking myself into it, but like seeing other people in the space who look exactly like me and hearing their stories and knowing that they were doing it meant I could do it too. And that also helped with the limiting beliefs immensely, and then just giving myself permission saying that, why can't I do this? This is something that I can do. There isn't anything stopping me except for myself from making the forward leaps of getting on the meetup calls, calling the brokers, reaching out to new people. Yes. If somebody doesn't respond, that's totally okay. Like it's not anything against me or you or anybody listening, right? It's just like moving on to the next, because with that consistency, like your goals that you want to meet will come true faster.
People ask a lot about mentorship and that's a big topic in our community, right? Finding mentors. And I think about my path, right? And I'm like, God, it would have been a lot easier if we had a mentor early on, a lot easier. And that's, I think, a lot of the passion Jess and I have for what we're doing here with the investor community. But everyone that can be a mentor is busy. Let's be frank. They're busy. They need to see something in someone to mentor someone. They just do. They just don't sit around like looking for things to do. They're usually very busy people who are getting pulled and they want to give back and they want to support, but it has to be like that other person has to bring something to the table, right? We have a new mentorship thing that we're doing in our community where women are getting mentored from Andres and I for like a 15-minute clip. And, we're having them send us an email and answer questions. If they don't do that, we're not mentoring them because they have to do something, right? We're not just going to be like, people have to step forward in order to get the support, right? We all have to do something to show up powerfully and for real. So I'm curious for this person that's part of your team that had the experience, the mentor, I don't know if you asked them this, but like what was it for them to bring you on as a mentee? Because in order to find a mentor, right, we have to be good mentees. And that's for all of us. So I'm just curious if what that kind of looked like and that might be really helpful for the women listening.
No, yeah, that's a great question. So initially after the first call, it was just like that feeling like, okay, I know that this person can bring value, but what value can I bring? Right. Because that's part of it. And like just listening to what their pain points were, I had to take a step back and say, okay, well, what can I provide with the pain points that he shared? And that's how it was. It was me just really actively listening, offering that, and then asking, a week or two later, hey, can we jump on another call to talk about real estate investing? And it was like, yeah, absolutely. And I think what it truly was the consistency. Like when the call was ended, what I said I was going to do, I did, so that when I got on the next call, they could see that the momentum was going, right? And even now, actually, because I have asked that question and the answer was like, you just said you did what you said you were going to do, right? Because he had said a lot of people have come and asked me for help and I'll get on these calls, but nothing has happened from one week to the next. But with you two, everything just kept rolling and more progress was made. And so I knew that like spending my time with you would be worth it. And so that's how it happened.
And just so I clarify, this is a non-paid mentor, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So just so you guys listening thinking, oh, but is this a paid mentor or a no paid mentor? It is possible to find it. And I totally agree with you, Suzy. What mentor's job is not to motivate the mentee. It's quite the opposite, right? And I think that you nailed the head when you said that you did what you said you were going to do. This is so simple, but so rare. It's rare because many of us, right, when we commit to ourselves, that's why I believe mentors are important, because we sometimes quit on ourselves. We sometimes cancel our appointments with ourselves. But when we have a mentor and we commit to that, oh, there's no way in hell I'm going to commit to something with somebody else and not accomplish that.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. So when you look back, share with us the top 2 or 3 lessons that you learned in that short period of time during the purchase of your first 88 units.
So the lessons that I learned, is to ask deeper questions. And what I mean by that is like for our capital raise, for example, like it was painful, because we had no idea how it was going to go. Right. So we had talked to so many investors by this amount of time, and we had hoped, that when people said like, oh, like bank on this many people investing if you have this many people on your list. Mm-hmm. But while we were like taking in that information and making sure we had that amount of people, other people on our team were not. And so we didn't think to ask, like, for example, say like I had asked, how much money do you think you can raise? And the individual said $500,000. I didn't stop to think and ask, well, why do you have that number in your head? How did you come up with that? Who have you been talking to? And so now it's just really digging deep, and it should just be something that you do and something that you're not scared to do, because when you're at that stage or point in the acquisition, you don't want to feel what I felt. And what I mean is that like I didn't sleep, right? Because if you don't close.
I was going to just ask you that, like how you slept.
No, yeah, I didn't sleep. And a huge part was my investors trust me and they think I'm going to close this deal. So I now have to dig deep into like every single individual that I've ever talked to in my entire life and figure out how to make this close, because that's just what you have to do.
Yeah.
And then I guess another lesson is just to know that although like I will never be a slumlord, because I truly care about the families in the community, that sometimes sellers do not take as good, I guess, do not take care of properties as I would. And so like after it closed and during takeover, I was just really amazed by, just what had happened. And yes, the families there and the people there who are living in the community they can say any story, but the stories were very consistent. And just part of that like broke my heart, knowing that there are people out there where it's all just about profits, but we all are human and we're all people deep down. And that's more important than anything else for me.
Love it. So this is probably coming inspired by our keynote for tomorrow, Lisa Nichols, because since we've interviewed her, I just keep having her words in my head of like, what is your next best self telling you? And I have these internal conversations in my head, which is actually not the best thing because I'm a little nutty. But anyway, my question for you, Suzy, is it's coming from that inspiration of our amazing keynote who's speaking tomorrow, Lisa Nichols. Suzy a year ago and Suzy today, like who did you have to become to do what you've done? Right? Because it's not a small feat. I will tell you that. Jess and I have been around the block a few times, and your story is not just like, oh yeah, I can think of like 95 women like that. Like it's a really special story. So you had to be a different way to accomplish what you accomplished. It's not just the action you took, it's the way of being, right? We know that, but we don't always give that credit. So what qualities did you have to have for Suzy to have achieved what she just achieved in the last year? 3 top ways of being, because you had to have like stepped up your own, who you were, right? Your quote unquote best self, as Lisa calls it, and stepping into that. So I'm just curious, because you identifying that for the women listening can start being that way as well. So if that is their goal, that they want to jump into something bigger and they don't need to have like 25 years experience, then they can emulate those ways of being. The success leaves clues. It's not like out of the ether. So what were like the top 3 ways of being for you?
Yeah,
that you found essential?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think the top one for sure was figuring out like my why, right? Because that's what drove me. And I want to say that it's essential because like we all get tired and we all get to a point where we're like, it's just too much. But when like I found out that my why was bigger than myself, that's what motivated me. And I know that might sound, I don't want to say weird, but kind of, I guess, difficult to imagine. But truly, like when you're doing something for more than just yourself, for me, it definitely motivates me. I think the second thing would be balance, right? Because when we go into this, it's like all in. I mean, with any entrepreneur, it's all in, all in, all in. This is all I focus on. But when you find the balance of home life and you find the balance of work and you find the balance of putting together your website, if that's what you choose to do, and putting together a team and interviewing contractors, like your life still stays very stable. So there are very chaotic moments within it all. But like when you're working on everything all at the same time, you just create this really great blend. So nothing gets left on the back burner, right? Because that's when a lot of high stress moments happen. It's like, oh my goodness, I've been working on this and I forgot about this. And this also needs to be done. But when it's all happening, if you're just doing a little bit at a time, then it works completely. And then to even find that balance, right? A big thing for me was time blocking. And like, I literally just looked at my schedule every day and put in times where I was going to work on stuff, because a huge thing was, and I even hear it now, right, is that I don't have enough time to do this right now. And we all have that extra time, but it's doing that like internal audit and, asking ourselves, oh, is this something I really need to be spending time on right now? Because you'll find that you have an extra hour or a half hour, 2 or 3 times in your day where you can get something else done. And I think that is huge. But, just remembering that through this all, you become a better version of yourself. And although it may seem like difficult at the beginning, it is truly all worth it. Like the longer you stay in it and the better that you get at it, because with practice, that's when you become more comfortable. And that's when everything starts to get easier and you become more confident.
I love that. And it's funny because people often will say, well, what helps you go to the next stage? And it's that not giving up, obviously, you didn't say that, but it, is critical. But what I love with your story too, is that you had you got into something that relied on other people and other people's money. And when you go down that path, there isn't turning back, right? It's not just, oh, we're just going to lose our own money. Like it's a whole different ball of wax, really, quite honestly. And it's additional pressure, I'm sure, like your sleepless nights, but it also brings you to a level where you're like, we're figuring this out no matter what. And I feel like I've been there multiple times, and I think that is the reason, right? Because you have other people that's relying on you and you're a steward of their money and you're a steward of their trust. And that's like top, right? So I love your story. I can't wait to see what you do next. So I know you have another 100 unit happening and a lot of neat stuff happening. So thank you so much for being on here today. Where can the ladies listening learn more about you and follow your story along here?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. So because I know that there are active investors out there and passive investors out there, I do have 2 guides available. And for the active investor, it is a checklist. And what I did was went through all of the emails from taking down the first multifamily acquisition and just distilled it, right? And so just to give some people a reference of what the steps that you have to take, you can find that at adventurousrei.com/checklist. And then for the passive investor, I just created a guide, and it is how to passively invest from anywhere in the world. And you can find that at adventurousrei.com/guide. And my website, you can always find me there, which is adventurousrei.com. And then I actually just did launch a podcast, and it's called The Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. And what the whole premise is that I bring on industry experts, and we just discuss the impact that they're making in their communities, whether that's with themselves, their family, or, in different countries while leveraging real estate investing.
That's wonderful. All this information you guys can find on our show notes. Now we're going to transition to our fabulous 3 questions. And the first one, Suzy, is what's the most transformational book have you ever read?
Well, that's a great question. So for me, it was Who Not How.
I'm just reading that. Sorry.
It's really
Sorry
good.
to interrupt. I literally just started opening. I opened it last evening.
No, it's a great one. You'll love it.
The second question is what's the most powerful routine that you did to create a financially free and balanced life?
No, absolutely. So that would have to be meditation and affirmations every morning, because that clear mind and then saying my affirmations right after just affirms that this is something that I can do.
Awesome. And the last question is which woman, famous or not, has inspired you the most?
Ooh, that's a great one. And I would actually just have to say my grandma. Just on my dad's side, she's just somebody I loved very, very deeply. And just her love and her passion for life inspires me every day.
Awesome.
That's wonderful. Suzy, thanks so much for being on our show. Thanks for sharing your story with us and all the women listening. And can't wait to hear your next step. So just appreciate you being on with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And I was so happy to be here with you 2 today.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.